My name is Alexandra Fairfield, and I'm a bartender for entities that shouldn't exist. Overall, my job is pretty standard. Serving drinks, turning down weirdos asking for my number, you get the gist. This place isn't that out of the ordinary. But just like every other normal bar in town, the Devil's Horn has its own set of regular patrons, and they set it apart from the rest. First, there's Jack. I'm not entirely sure what he is or what he does for work, but he refers to himself as a night stalker, whatever that means. I've never had any problems out of him, so he's okay in my book. And then there's Damascus. He's gotta be my least favorite of our regular crew. He's a 200-year-old incubus who's constantly trying to get in my pants. I have to hand it to him, he is a smooth talker, but his silver fox tactics don't work on me. On the other hand, Jerry is an ordinary guy. He's a human being unlike the majority of my patrons. Most humans aren't allowed entry to the Devil's Horn, but every so often the owner makes an exception. I like Jerry, but he's got a major drinking problem, and that often leads him to trouble. There's only 2 other entities that frequent our little haven enough to be considered irregulars. Sally is one of the prettiest girls that I've ever met, with flowing blonde hair, icy blue eyes, and the curves to make a NASCAR driver spin out. She's got it all. Unfortunately, she knows exactly how attractive she is, and it goes straight to her head. She's a vampire, and the claws and the fangs come out on a regular basis. And then there's Anonymous. I call him Anon for short. He's the most mysterious of the bunch, and fittingly, the only one who frightens me. He's been coming to the Devil's Horn for longer than anyone can remember, but no one knows a thing about him, not even his name. He usually takes a seat in the back and occasionally orders a whiskey neat, though I have a hunch that it's only performative. He wears the same brown fedora along with a pair of gloves and a trench coat. He likes to read an old yellowing newspaper that obscures his face from view. That's another thing about him. No one's ever seen what he looks like. Well, no one who's lived to tell about it, at least. One of my least favorite aspects about Anon is that whenever he decides to speak, something terrible usually follows. He's a real-life harbinger of doom and the reason for the only rule that I follow at the Devil's Horn. When Anon speaks, always listen. That's why when I glanced up to see him standing there last week, his malevolent aura radiating off him like toxic fumes, I got a chill that rattled me to my bones. Hi Anon, do you want another drink? I asked, vainly hoping that was all he needed. Of course, I was wrong. Beware. His voice came out deep and gravelly like he had chunks of concrete stuck in his throat. I always hated the sound of his voice, but even worse was the message. Beware. He would never elaborate, just that one harrowing word preceded by imminent disaster. I nodded and watched as he walked back to his seat at the far corner of the room. He reclaimed his seat, then opened his newspaper to continue reading like nothing had happened. Geez, you really got the short end of the stick tonight, huh? Jack said, leaning forward, his dark eyes foggy from all the gin and tonics that he had downed. Well, maybe. Then again, maybe not. Anon always says that before something bad happens. Doesn't mean it's going to happen tonight. Probably safe to text Keimer anyway, though, I said, producing my phone and drafting a message. Oh, no need for that. I can take on whatever trouble comes your way, sweetheart. I immediately cringed. I knew that voice all too well. Oh yeah, what are you gonna do? Screw the thing to death. If there even is a thing, we have no idea what's coming. And Damascus grinned, unshaken. His irises glowed an intense amber as he shot me a wink. Who knows, whatever it is, it won't be able to resist my charm. I frowned and Jack shot him a glare. Well, you're pretty easy for me to resist, I said, snatching a rag and cleaning out a glass. Damascus's grin faltered and he swirled his drink, watching the vortex that he had created before downing the entire thing. Another old-fashioned when you get the chance, babe. Heavy on the bitters. I sighed, utilizing the glass that I had been drying off to fulfill his request. I had just put the finishing touches on his cocktail when I heard a purr from further down the bar. Who's this? He looks scrumptious, Sally said, running her tongue over her canines. I slid Damascus's drink and then looked up to find a man walking into the bar. He was sharply dressed, his blonde hair slick with pomade, jawline sharp enough to cut glass. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find him attractive. The stranger sauntered up to the bar, claiming a seat beside Damascus and Sally, much to her delight. Her face lit up and I could see her subtly sidling over to him as he poured over the drink specials. Damascus, on the other hand, threw him a look of disgust. He was always the jealous type. My attention was torn away from the handsome newcomer by a voice. Jack had leaned in and whispered so that the others couldn't hear. "I'm gonna leave. I'd call Keimer if I were you. This guy is bad news and I don't want to stick around for what he's got in store." And with that, Jack slapped a 20 on the counter and made his exit. I took the cash, noting that he was 15 cents short on his tab, and pondered his words. Jack was good at sniffing out trouble. I decided to send Keimer a message just in case. Unfortunately, I wouldn't get the chance. I was interrupted by the man of the hour before I could pull out my phone. "Hi there, can I get a Manhattan, and make it strong if you will?" He shot me a grin, his perfect smile making my heart race. "Yeah, coming right up," I said, hoping that he hadn't noticed my cheeks glowing red. "Hey there, nice suit you got on," Sally chimed in, resting her elbows on the bar trying to catch the man's gaze. "Oh, thanks, hon, it's Armani." One look at Sally and I could tell that she was smitten. This guy could have said that he had found the thing in a dumpster for all she cared. It didn't matter to her. "Oh yeah, how much did it set you back? Mine was $7,000. Damascus interjected, his signature smirk plastered across his face. "Oh, that's cute. This was 25. I wish I could have taken a photograph of that moment for two reasons. One, because the look on Damascus's face was priceless, and two, because that was the last moment of peace that we would have before a disaster would unfold right before my eyes. "Hey Alex, my beer is warm, can you give me another one?" As much as I love Jerry, he doesn't know when he's had one too many. I watched, my blood turning to ice as he tripped over his own foot. The Miller Lite that he had been nursing sloshed forward, and to my utter horror, it soaked the new guy's expensive suit. I held my breath, waiting for a reaction. The man just stared forward for a few seconds, jaw clenched as he blinked the beer from his eyes. Sally looked mortified. Damascus snickered. Jerry clumsily rose to his feet, assessing the damage that he had done. "Whoa, sorry buddy, how about I buy you a drink as an apology?" What happened next occurred so fast that if I had blinked I would have missed it. The man stood, brushed off his jacket, and delivered the smoothest right hook that I had ever seen. Jerry slumped to the floor, hitting his head on a bar stool on the way down. There was no doubt about it. He was out cold. Before I had a chance to process what had just happened, Damascus clobbered the man in the nose, knocking him off balance. He staggered back, shocked by the sucker punch to the face, and fell flat on his butt. A rivulet of blood trickled down his nose, and he glared up at Damascus with a hatred that I had never witnessed in anyone before. "Oh, you'll pay for this," the man snarled, tending to his battered face. He suddenly didn't seem so attractive anymore, sitting there all bloody and soaked in beer. And Damascus, on the other hand, had won my heart for the first time in his life. "I doubt that," Damascus grinned, taking a step closer. All of a sudden, the door flew open, and our bouncer Sean lumbered through it. Sean is a big guy, he's got giant blood in him, and it shows. He's 7 foot 2 inches of pure rage and muscle. He crashed through the bar, grabbed the pair of squabbling heathens by the collars, and proceeded to the door with them. "Hey, why am I getting kicked out?" Damascus shouted, helpless against Sean's vice grip. "Sean," I said, causing him to stop in his tracks. "Damascus can stay. He was defending Jerry." Sean huffed before dropping Damascus to the floor. Our mysterious guest turned back to me, that look of hatred in his eyes so strong that I felt it boring through my flesh, and he shouted, "You made a big mistake tonight, all of you. This isn't over." Much to everyone's satisfaction, Sean chucked the troublemaker outside and slammed the door shut behind him. "Oh, sheesh, I'm glad that's over with. And to think I was going to ask for his number," Sally said, producing a cigarette from her purse and beginning to light it. "Not inside, Sally, we've been over this." "Oh, you're such a downer sometimes, Alex, you know that," she retorted before slinking to the door. "Are you okay, Damascus?" I said as I made my way to where Jerry still lay slumped on the floor. I hurriedly checked his pulse and breathed a sigh of relief when I found that he was alive. "Yeah, I'm fine." "Good. I'll be honest, I'm impressed. I didn't know you and Jerry were that close." "We're not," he said with a smirk. "I just couldn't pass up an opportunity to knock that prick's lights out." Once everything was said and done, the guy who had started the brawl was blacklisted. Jerry was fortunate enough to walk away with minor injuries, a black eye and a bruised ego. I wish I could say that it ended there, but unfortunately I can't do that. Weird things happened around the bar for the next week. It started off small. A glass shattering when no one had touched it, a full keg of beer losing all of its fizz, Jerry staying sober on a Monday. And then it escalated. Patrons began staying away because of a lingering sense of dread permeating the air. Most claimed something felt off, but they couldn't put a finger on it. I had a feeling that I knew who was causing it, and as it turns out, my intuition was correct. It was a dreary Tuesday morning when I received the shocking phone call. Sean had been rushed to the hospital. I paid him a visit the first chance I got, praying that he would be okay. Keimer hadn't told me how bad it was over the phone. When I laid eyes on Sean's swollen and battered face, my heart broke for him. "Sean, who did this to you?" Keimer said, his pointed ears glowing red at the tips. Someone had put his bouncer out of commission and he wasn't happy about it. "Oh, that guy from last week. Alex knows the one," he croaked, barely able to make eye contact with us. My heart sank. Yeah, I had a feeling it was him. How many of them were there, Sean?
3, maybe 4, I'm not sure. It all happened so fast.
Well, that's concerning. I'll be manning the door in his absence until he recovers, Keimer told me before turning back to Sean, who was already beginning to doze off.
And get some good rest, big guy.
Even amidst the severity of our situation, I couldn't help but giggle at the sight of Keimer standing on a step stool peeking through the slot in the door. The elves in Keimer's family aren't very short, but he's the exception. Much to his chagrin, his height maxed out at a whopping 5'1". The sight of him playing bouncer for the night was amusing to say the least.
"Another whiskey, if you'll be so kind,"
Jack said, polishing off the one he had been nursing.
"Yeah, one for me too,"
Jerry shouted, accidentally slamming his glass onto the counter.
"Jack, yours is coming right up.
Jerry, you're cut off."
"Oh, come on, Alex, just one more."
"Jerry, sweetheart, you're tripping over your own 2 feet again. Come, take a seat," Sally interjected, patting the stool beside her. Jerry smiled, his cheeks burning red.
"Don't have to tell me twice."
I sighed, catching the way that Sally glanced at Jerry's neck. "Don't even think about it, Sally," I said, handing Jack his drink. "Oh, Alex, do you really think so little of me? I would never." She made a big show of folding her arms and sticking her nose in the air. I was trying to think of a witty response when a commotion at the door captured our collective attention. It was flung open, seemingly of its own volition, sending Keimer crashing to the ground. My heart nearly stopped when I laid eyes on the man walking through the doorway. The same guy from a week prior led the charge, his glowing red eyes surveying the room. The others in his entourage were dressed just like him. In fact, they almost looked like carbon copies. Slicked back hair, expensive suits, shark-like predatory behavior. One look at the group was enough to send a chill crawling up my spine.
"What do you say, boys? Should we rough them up a little? Show them who they messed with?"
2 of the men nodded in agreement. The third didn't respond, his eyes laser-focused on something in the back of the bar.
"Well,"
the leader said, impatiently tapping his foot. The man tore his gaze away and I could see him begin to tremble. I knew exactly what he was looking at, and he had a right to be terrified.
"We gotta go. Trust me, you do not want to get on that thing's bad side,"
he said, pointing to where he had been staring. Anand sat there, his malevolent air stronger than ever. Though I couldn't see his eyes, I could tell that his gaze was trained on our untimely intruders.
"Oh crap, I didn't see that the last time I came. Yeah, let's get out of here. The squad proceeded to the door where Keimer stood, arms crossed and steam wafting from his ears. Cops are on the way. You'd better scram before they get here. The leader scoffed. You don't scare me, and that goes for the rest of you too. Mark my words, you will rue the day that you messed with Alan Steele. He shoved Keimer, who tripped over the step stool and fell back to the ground. Steele's cronies sneered as they followed him out the door. I made my way over to where Keimer sat, flipping the bird to the lot of them and extended a hand. He waved me off, slowly rising to his feet. I hate those guys. Bunch of stuck-up pricks think they can waltz in here and act like they own the place. No way, Keimer said, shaking his fist. Hey, at least there's a silver lining, I replied, crossing my arms. The guy was stupid enough to shout out his full name. Now you've got something to give to the cops. It was a small consolation. Keimer and I both knew that it wouldn't help, which meant that we would have to beef up security and fast. Those men were a group of glorified bullies, but there was one thing that I couldn't shake from my mind. Keimer had the door deadbolted shut. So how had they managed to get in? An additional week went by with little activity. The police report had been filed, but as far as any of us knew, no one under the name Alan Steele had been brought in for questioning. I knew that, yet I still lulled myself into a false sense of security. Maybe the cops had been enough to deter them, or more likely one glance in Anand's direction had done the trick. Unfortunately for everyone involved, that was wishful thinking. Sean was cleared to return to work 2 days before the incident. He looked like a different man from the one that I had seen lying in that hospital bed. His wounds were healing nicely and he had regained his intimidating demeanor. I think part of him was hoping that those guys would come back. He was itching for revenge. Keimer had hired another bouncer in lieu of the recent drama, a half-blooded troll named Tarn. The added security helped put my mind at ease, but even so, we could all sense a lingering tension in the atmosphere. An unexplainable foreboding that none of us could shake. What's the deal with you, Jack? Your eyes keep darting around the room, it's kind of worrying me, I said as he turned back to his drink. I don't know, I feel like something's coming. I don't know what, but I think that warning from Anand wasn't only for that time those creeps slunk in here. I think there's gonna be trouble. Big trouble. I pursed my lips. His statement had affirmed everything that I had been feeling. I can sense it too, but don't worry, dear, I'll fend them off just like the last time. Damascus smirked, taking a swig of his vodka lemonade. I rolled my eyes. What a douche. Everyone felt it. Even Sally, with her usual carefree attitude, seemed to be aware of the growing unease. The only one who wasn't fazed by the gloomy atmosphere was of course Jerry. He leaned against the bar, glassy eyes poring over the drink menu that he already knew by heart. I made up my mind, he said, swaying slightly on his stool. A rum and coke for me. Pretty pleased with sprinkles. And Damascus scowled at him. Gerald, don't you think you've had enough? Haven't you gotten tired of waking up every single morning with a throbbing headache and a queasy feeling in your gut? You're 35 years old with no wife, no kids, and a soul-sucking dead-end job. I'm no expert, but it seems like you need to wake up and turn your life around. And Jerry stared blankly at him before his eyes dropped to the floor. He nodded, seeming to turn over the words in his mind. Finally, after around 10 good seconds of thought, he faced Damascus and spoke. Nah, I'm good, he said, turning to the bar and slapping his hand onto the counter. Bartender, hit me with another round. Everyone collectively shook their heads. I sighed, resigning myself to preparing another drink for him, but before I could hit him with another round, something happened that would change everything. I watched Sean's face twist in confusion as the deadbolt turned on its own. The slot in the door ricocheted open and a pair of red glowing eyes appeared behind it. Sean tried to flip the deadbolt back to its locked position, but it wouldn't budge. The door suddenly slammed open, and both Sean and Tarn leapt back in shock. My heart plummeted as I laid eyes on the trash that filtered through the doorway. There were 5 of them this time. The first 4 were the same group of troublemakers who had harassed us before. The 5th one, however, didn't resemble the others in the slightest, with their slicked back hair and their expensive suits. This one wore a robe that drooped low, hiding its face from view.
"Ah, so good to see you all again," Alan Steele said, licking his lips as he shot a wink in Sean's direction. His henchman snickered, chatting with delight. Hanan suddenly stood from his chair and all eyes fell to him. He was without a doubt the most powerful entity in the bar. If anyone could take on those thugs, it was him. He took one step forward before Steele held up a finger and wagged it in a cocky gesture that deeply angered him. "Not so fast, big guy." Behind him, the robed figure raised a mottled hand, and a faint purple light enshrouded Anand's body, rooting him to the spot. Though his face was concealed, I could feel the rage radiating off of him like heat from a steam engine. I scanned the room, searching in vain for an out or a weapon or an escape path, something. I found nothing useful, but I did pick up on something strange as my eyes traveled between each individual in the room. Jack was missing. Oh great, he bailed on us again, I thought, pursing my lips. With Anan officially out of the picture and Jack running for the hills, that left me, Sean, Sally, Damascus, and Jerry, who, let's be honest, is probably more of a liability than an asset in a fight. Tarn was less than useless. He took one look at the group before darting out of the door, never to be seen again. I hope he tripped on a rock on his way out. No other patrons had stopped in that night, making it an uneven 4 versus 5 brawl on account of a non-stalemate with the hooded figure, and we didn't have the advantage. "Look, what do you want from us? An apology, fine, we're very sorry that your suit got drenched in booze, is that good enough?" I shouted, breaking the silence. Steele snarled, baring canines sharp enough to pierce metal. A gnawing realization ate at me like a hungry piranha. Alan Steele and his gang weren't just a band of ordinary human deadbeats. No, they were something else, something powerful. "Good enough," he scoffed. "You amuse me. I want you to drop to your knees and grovel for forgiveness, all of you," he said, pointing an accusatory finger at each of us. "And you, gorgeous, you can stay kneeling." He smiled at Sally, who wrinkled her nose. "Disgusting," she spat, baring her own pair of sharpened fangs. Steele licked his lips, his wet slimy tongue worming around his mouth. It made me want to vomit. "How about the rest of you, huh? Who's gonna make the first move, or are you too afraid to take your beating like an adult?" The sound of shattering glass snatched my attention. I turned to find Damascus standing there, suit jacket lying on a bar stool, a smashed beer bottle in his grip. His eyes flickered with the thrill of it all. "I will," he said, rushing towards Steele with a speed that I didn't know he was capable of. What happened next shocked me to my core. Damascus wasn't just talking a big game, he followed through on his threat, burying the jagged edges of the bottle into Steele's gut. Crimson blossomed through his shirt, staining his expensive suit. Steele's expression dropped. He glanced down at the blood dripping from his abdomen, and then he met Damascus's gaze, and a smile inched across his lips. "Did you really think it would be so simple to beat me?" He laughed, and I noticed a shift in his features. Subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but it soon became impossible to ignore. Twin jet black horns sprouted from the hair on Steele's head. His eyes took on a deep red hue and his nails had morphed into thick and sharp claws. The remaining members of his group started changing too. Each grew a pair of horns, some cracked and some barely visible. None were as impressive as the ones that Steele sported. He glanced back to his pack of dogs, a wild grin on his face, before giving them a one-word command. "Attack." The bar devolved into pure chaos. Damascus wrestled with Steele, Sean grappled with one of the freaks near the door. I produced the baseball bat that I keep under the bar and I tossed it to Sally. "Thanks, sweetheart, I owe you one," she said, winking and blowing me a kiss. "Don't mention it," I replied, turning to face my own opponent. The creep had a good foot on me in height, excluding the horns, and he looked hungry. Like he was a ravenous tiger and I was a big, juicy sirloin. "Oh, mighty unlucky tonight, aren't we? Your friends left you all to your lonesome." I stared at him, snuffing out the faux fear in my eyes, and I grinned, watching his confidence falter. I had been waiting for this. "Oh, me, unlucky. I think you're the unlucky one here."
The guy could only stand and watch as my body shifted and writhed before him. Dark green scales erupted across my flesh. My bones crunched and snapped as they reformed. My nails, just manicured 2 days prior, melted away in lieu of a pair of clawed digits. But my favorite feature, the one that makes all the boys drop dead, is my smile. Rows and rows of yellow serrated teeth replaced by a perfect set of pearly whites, primed and ready to tear into their next victim. The demonic entity stood stock still, soaking in my presence like a sponge. "What are you?" he croaked, his eyes wide. "Oh, wouldn't you like to know?" I smirked, my teeth glimmering like kitchen knives. "Doesn't matter," he said, reapplying his overconfident persona. "Whatever you are, I'm going to end you." He threw a jab at my head, which I narrowly avoided. He was faster than I would have thought, but not quick enough. I clamped my jaws down into his arm, sinking my teeth deep into his flesh. He unleashed an ungodly roar, the sudden outburst reverberating throughout the dogfight ensuing around us. I wrenched my head from side to side, trying to cause as much damage as possible, eliciting a wail of pain. And then, just as I was reveling in my success, I felt a sudden blow to the temple, followed by another and another. I released my grip and staggered backward, my head beginning to swim. The thing standing over me grinned. He caressed his good hand, which I came to realize was what had delivered the blows. I watched, my eyes growing wide as the exposed flesh of his ruined arm slowly began to heal. What? How is that possible? We're no ordinary demons. Should have gathered that by now. We were sent to Earth from the big man downstairs. He wouldn't allow us to leave uninsured. Before he could continue though, a rogue beer bottle was smashed over his head. The demon paused, his fist clenched, before slowly turning to face the perpetrator. Jerry stood before him, trembling violently. His face was as pale as a ghost, and I could see the instant regret in his eyes. I could have kissed him in that moment, not that it would have been a pleasant experience for either of us. Unbeknownst to him though, Jerry had given me just the distraction that I needed. "Seriously, you could have just ran, you know. Nobody would have blamed you," the demon said with a sigh. "But now I have to kill you in front of your old lady friend here." He didn't even get to take a single step before I was on top of him. I bit down hard on his neck and pulled, a sizable mass of flesh tearing free. Blood poured from the open wound like a faucet, soaking everything in the immediate vicinity, including me. My victim made a vain attempt to stop the bleeding. He grabbed a nearby rag from the bar and shoved it into the gash, but it was no use. Before he could react, I sunk my teeth in again, ripping away more flesh and sinew before he had a chance to heal. I kept chewing and tearing away at the thing's throat as he desperately clawed at my scales. He quickly grew weaker and weaker until eventually, I glanced up from the carnage to find that the light had been snuffed out from his eyes. Only then did I realize that I may have gone a tad bit overboard. The demon's throat had been entirely torn away, leaving only his spine adjoining his head to his body. I wanted to throw up. I had never attacked anyone so viciously before, but I couldn't do that. I had to remember where I was and what was at stake if we didn't come out of this victorious. I stood, wiping blood and chunks of eviscerated flesh from my cheek. Jerry stared at me, his mouth hanging open. I had never seen him so terrified in my life. "Thanks, buddy, you really came through for me. I'll explain later. Go keep Anon company while we sort this out," I said, nodding to where Anon sat, still bound by whatever black magic the robed figure had saddled him with. Jerry didn't even respond. He simply did as he was told, speed-walking to the back, where he took a seat by the brooding entity. With Jerry out of harm's way, I surveyed my surroundings, determining who needed my help the most. And to my immense dismay, there was no clear answer. Sally wasn't faring well. Her face was bloody and the baseball bat lying a good distance away from her. Damascus was in a heated battle with Steel, the pair swapping blows like trading cards. Sean was entirely outmatched by his demonic counterpart. He was managing to get a punch or a kick in here and there, but ultimately, he didn't have much left in the tank. I was stuck in between a rock and a hard place. Damascus looked like he could hold out for a little bit. The problem was Sally and Sean, and by helping one, I would be condemning the other. And just as I was coming to terms with the fact that someone's blood was going to be on my hands, I caught a glint out of the corner of my eye. It was only there for a second, a metallic glimmer whisked away by an invisible force as quickly as it had appeared. My heart leapt with joy. I understood it then. We only needed to hold out for a little while longer. Even so, I still had to think on my feet. Sally was the closest to me. I wanted to help Sean, but I was scared that I wouldn't make it in time. A light bulb flickered in my head, and suddenly I knew what I had to do. I leapt over the bar and began taking bottle after bottle, launching the heaviest ones across the room with mixed results. Glass showered the floor around Sean's feet, but finally I managed to hit my target. A full bottle of tequila found its mark on the back of the demon's head, knocking him to the ground. That gave Sean a prime opportunity to fight back, and he didn't waste a single second. Without hesitation, I ran back around the bar and over to Sally. She was blocking the thing's blows as best she could, but she was taking a major beating. I intervened, raking my claws across the thing's throat, opening a deep gash before grabbing Sally's hand and hoisting it to her feet. "Oh, you could have shown up a little sooner. No guy's gonna want to flirt with a face this messed up," she said, blood trickling from her nose. "Hey, I had my own creep to handle. Cut me some slack." We didn't get a chance to continue bickering before the demon's wound had healed and he was back on us, his eyes radiating with rage. Even with the two of us joining forces, I didn't know if we would be quick enough to beat the monster staring us down. Meanwhile, out of the corner of my eye, I could see that Damascus was losing. Steele's healing ability gave him the edge. Damascus was a demon himself, but he wasn't blessed with the same advantage. "Come on, hurry up," I muttered, my heart beating a mile a minute. Our opponent didn't wait around. In the blink of an eye, he was on top of us. This one was somehow faster than the one that I had taken down, and he packed a harder punch too. I suddenly found myself being knocked to the ground, blindsided by an unexpected blow to the face. My vision swam as I got back up. I woozily glanced around, trying to regain my stability. Everything was going wrong. Sean was back to losing his battle. Damascus had finally been beaten into submission. Sally was 2 seconds away from ending up like me. But through all the haze and bloodshed, I saw our saving grace. Jack suddenly appeared from thin air behind the robed figure, brandishing a knife. He slit the thing's throat in one swift motion. Whatever was beneath that drooping fabric desperately grabbed at its bleeding jugular, helpless to stop it. It crumpled to the ground, a pool of crimson blossoming around its corpse. I grinned. Anon had been released. A newfound hope swelled within me as he materialized behind the douchebag fighting Sally and me. The demon was just about to punch Sally's lights out when he paused, sensing Anon's presence and spun to face him. I have never seen Anon so angry before. The aura radiating off of him was downright sinister. He clearly didn't like being contained. "Can I help you?" our tormentor said, trying to hold up a strong facade despite the tremble in his voice. Anon didn't answer. "Sally, look away," I said. She understood, following my orders. I averted my gaze, and just as the brown fedora was tipping upwards, revealing the monstrosity underneath. "What the hell is that thing?" That was it. He didn't even get a chance to scream. I clamped my eyes shut, the wet slough of viscera hitting the ground and the nauseating crunch of bone filling my ears. Before I knew it, the sound wasn't so close. There was a pause, and then it resumed across the bar further away. Anon must have been taking care of Sean's attacker. "Alex?" Sally said, staring at the wall. "Yeah." "Anon, what is he doing to them?" Her face was pale as a ghost. "I don't know, and I have a feeling that we don't want to find out." Just when I thought that all of our problems were going to be solved, I heard a weak voice calling my name. "Alex, Sally, help." I had to risk it. I turned, and thankfully Anon was facing away, disassembling Sean's opponent. My eyes fell to the only demon still standing, Steele. Damascus was in bad shape. He was lying on the floor, bloody and bruised, the outfit that he took so much pride in tattered and ruined. Steele stood over him, a sinister gleam in his eye. He raised a broken beer bottle above his head, presumably the same one Damascus had stabbed him with, and prepared to bring the jagged edge down hard on Damascus's skull. Though he wasn't my favorite patron, he had fought for the Devil's Horn on his own accord. He didn't have to do that. I couldn't just sit there and watch him die. I leapt into action, bolting over to the pair, praying that I would make it in time.
It was going to be close, but if I timed it right, I had a shot. I held my breath as I dove through the air, my body acting as a shield. The craggy edges of the bottle pierced my scales, and I felt a sharp pain jolt through me as I hit the floor. "Oh, would you look at that?" Steele said, grinning from ear to ear. "You're doing my job for me. I was going to get to you later, but no point in waiting around, I suppose." Fear surged through me as Alan Steele took a step closer. He raised a clawed hand, ready to swipe it across my exposed underbelly. A slash like that had the potential to tear me open like a piñata. He brought his hand down, and I instinctively covered myself the best I could, wincing as the glass shifted beneath my skin. I closed my eyes, expecting to feel the pain of 1,000 hot coals searing into my flesh at any moment. But it never came. When I realized that I hadn't been sliced to ribbons, I hesitantly opened my eyes and glanced up. A gloved hand held Steele's arm back, preventing him from attacking me. His features shifted, shock morphing into dread as he realized what was happening. He surveyed his surroundings, having seemingly been oblivious to the fact that his cronies were dead. He went pale as his eyes fell to Anan. "No, this can't be happening. You're just a bunch of pathetic worms. I was supposed to win, me. I refuse to accept this. Alan Steele will." Those are the last words he spoke before the nauseating crunch of bones permeated the ensuing silence. "You really saved our butts back there. You never mentioned anything about invisibility before," I said, sliding Jack a drink. "Oh yeah, well, you never mentioned anything about being a fish person or whatever the hell you are," he said, slipping a 10 across the bar. "Touché. Keep it. Drinks around the house tonight," I said, winking as I passed him back the bill. I could see Damascus eyeing me from a couple seats down. "Yes, yours too," I said as he returned to smirk and took a sip of whiskey. "I'll take what I can get. That suit those punks ruined wasn't cheap. Anyway, how's your wound healing?" "Oh, pretty nicely, it wasn't deep. Keimer wanted me to take some time off, but I'll be okay." "I see you're good as new already. Just 24 hours ago, I thought you were going to be a dead man." "Oh, the mighty Damascus dead. It wouldn't suit me." "Oh yeah, I think it would suit you just fine." Sally chimed in, earning herself a scowl. "Yeah," Jerry shouted, "but I stopped us all from really being dead," he said, slumping against the bar. "You did good, Jerry, I'll give you that," I replied, "but I think we all know who the real hero is." I nodded to the back of the room where Anand sat, the same yellowing newspaper hiding his face. He didn't even look up. He simply raised his glass into the air in response. "Cheers," Jack said as all the other patrons followed suit. "I'll drink to that."